It has been an interesting offseason for a lot of 49er fans who are trying to figure out what is the current direction of the team. Because when we listen to the San Francisco 49ers under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch talk about how they build their team and kind of the ideologies that they go and place into roster building and roster construction, it typically always comes back to the defensive line. It's just been something that they have been very open about talking about. They believe the foundation of their team is built on the defensive line. So when we look at the current defensive line, we look at the kind of lack of involvement in free agency and things of that nature. We're going to kind of dive into that room specifically just based on the things that we're talking about. When you look at the 49ers' current defensive line, it's anchored by Nick Bosa. Now, the reigning defensive player of the year definitely had a bit of a quote unquote down year, still productive, but again, I think when the whole defensive line is struggling, the entire defense is struggling, it makes sense that not everyone's stats are going to look as nice as they could have. But with a lot of the moves that we've seen so far, the three-fourths of the 49ers starting defensive line heading into 2024 is gone. Malik Collins was released. Javon Hargrave was released. Leonard Floyd was released. These guys were your starting defensive line to go along with Nick Bosa. Now, they have all signed with respective teams. They actually all made pretty decent money in free agency. And what do you have left? You have Jordan Elliott, who the 49ers signed last year on a cost effective deal to come in to be kind of a run stopping defensive tackle. You've got Yetur Gross Matos, who shows a and has a lot of potential to be a really good inside out kind of edge defensive tackle hybrid type. It's just hurt last year. That was really his only issue was availability, but he has upside. You have Sam Okiwanu, who really came on strong last year and deserves a bigger role, but I don't know if we would quantify him as the edge one, even though if we were to build out a starting defensive line group today, I think I might put him at edge one. We'll get to that at the end of this. You have Kevin Givens, who the 49ers brought back this year. So I guess you could say this was the one signing that they made. They brought back Kevin Givens, who I actually do like a bit, and I do think he's super underrated. I think he's better than Jordan Elliott. I think I think he's pretty solid, but he was also dealing with injuries last year. We saw Evan Anderson, undrafted free agent, really show some promise. So a young interior defensive tackle who's probably rotational at best right now, but still solid. And Kalia Davis, who the 49ers drafted in, I believe it was the sixth round a couple years ago. Had a medical red shirt kind of freshman year, his rookie season, but didn't really do a whole lot. He's played sparingly. He's had a sack or two, but really hasn't played that much of an impact. Drake Jackson, who's just having really bad luck right now with injuries with his knee and things of that nature. We don't even know if he'll be able to play this year. We'll see um, how it's going with him. Robert Beal Jr., former fifth round draft pick, hasn't done much. Jonathan Garvin was signed last year as like a practice squad guy. Teron Jackson signed at the end of the year. He has some upside, but still some untapped potential there. And Alex Barrett, who's been a quality, practice squad guy. So when I had mentioned like what the 49ers starting defensive line would look like today, I would probably have Nick Bosa. Then I would put Yetur Gross Matos actually at defensive tackle. I would probably slide in Evan Anderson, but it would be kind of slash Kevin Givens. Those guys would rotate um, along, with Yetur Gross Matos on the interior defensive tackle spot. And then, like I mentioned, your edge one right now, based on this current roster, is probably Sam Okiwanu. And I don't know. I don't know if that is a foundational type defensive line. Now, Aziz Ojulari, he made news today for signing with the Eagles on a 1-year, $4 million deal. Not a lot. That's really, really cheap for a situational pass rusher. Now, if the 49ers were to sign him, it wouldn't like he would have fixed everything. He would be a situational pass rusher. They would still need to look towards the draft and things like that, but it would help a little bit. But he didn't. He goes to the Eagles, which is basically Georgia U 2.0. Just nothing but Georgia Bulldogs over there. So when you currently look at the San Francisco 49ers defensive line, it's so even like again, even last year, the guys that they brought in, I didn't love. I didn't think they were world beaters. I didn't think they were like, oh, our defensive line is fixed, after they released Eric Armstead, and things of that nature. But I would definitely say it hasn't gotten better. So when you look at the current state of the 49ers defensive line heading into 2025, it is concerning. It just where we're currently at. It obviously lends itself to the 49ers drafting quite a few defensive tackles and defensive ends coming up in the draft because when you look at the available free agents that are still out there, there really isn't much. If you're signing anyone at this point, it's 1 year kind of vet minimum, can't body type deals. You're not getting a starter at this point in free agency. So it really is such a deviation of what the 49ers have, at least we've come to know and kind of following their trends. It just feels like such a deviation because it doesn't feel like they have a starting defensive line heading into the draft. And as a result of that, it makes kind of sends a signal, right, to the rest of the league that, hey, the 49ers need defensive linemen and they're probably going to be drafting defensive linemen. So I think one of the drawbacks of having such clear, defined needs on your roster heading into the draft is other teams can jump you potentially. If you guys, but like another team knows the 49ers is going to really like this defensive tackle, or they're really going to like this defensive end in like the second or third round. Teams can jump in front of them and try to trade in front of them to cut them off, to take that player away from them. So that's kind of one of the fallbacks is just you can get sniped from a player you really like based on the fact that your needs are very clear and a team who could be targeting someone that the 49ers might be targeting as well. They just kind of jump up and they snag them too. So it's going to be fascinating to see how the 49ers address this, the rest of free agency and in the draft. But it seems to be the number one need. And I'm curious to know what you guys think. Who should they draft? Who should they target? Whether at 11, whether a trade back, whether mid rounds, late round, who do you think the San Francisco 49ers should target in the draft at defensive line? Because let's face it, they're going to have to do it. And it's the worst kept secret heading into the draft right now surrounding the 49ers. So let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.